few years ago, in a vibrant African town, life was filled with the sounds of bustling markets, the rhythm of drums, and the laughter of children playing in the streets. The town, with its warm sun and colorful atmosphere, was a place where everyone knew each other, and every corner seemed to hold a new story. Among its people was Sanele, a young woman with a heart full of creativity and dreams as bright as the African skies. She had always been captivated by the beauty of her world, and her greatest desire was to express it through fashion. Every day, she would sketch her designs, envisioning a future where her art could come to life and touch others. Sanele's life had always been peaceful. She lived in a small, cozy home with her father, who was her world. After the loss of her mother, they had become even closer, finding comfort in each other's company. Their bond was unbreakable, and Sanele felt safe in her father's love. But that sense of safety would soon be shattered when her father remarried. Isoke, her new stepmother, and Kendi, her stepsister, arrived in their home, and everything changed. The warmth that once filled their house was replaced by an uncomfortable silence, and the dreams Sanele held so dearly began to feel distant. In the quiet of the evenings, Sanele could feel her world shifting as her stepmother and stepsister slowly took control, leaving her to wonder how much of her life and her dreams she would still be able to hold on to. When Isoke and Kendi first moved into the family home, the change was immediate and unsettling. Isoke, her new stepmother, wasted no time taking control of everything. With a sharp, commanding voice, she rearranged the house and set new rules that were designed to keep Sanele in the background. She would often criticize the way Sanele did things, making it clear that nothing she did was good enough. Isoke didn't care about Sanele's feelings. She wanted things her way. She would tell Sanele to do chores, but the tasks were never ending, and if something was slightly out of place, Isoke would get upset, making Sanele feel as though she could never do anything right. Kendi, her new stepsister, was even more difficult to handle. A spoiled, self-centered young woman, Kendi had grown up with everything she wanted handed to her. She would demand attention from their father at every moment and often laughed at Sanele when she quietly went about her day. Kendi never lifted a finger to help around the house and expected everyone to cater to her every whim. She had a way of making Sanele feel useless, as if she was invisible and unimportant. Sanele noticed how her father, once so kind and caring, seemed to be paying more attention to Isoke and Kendi. It felt as though their presence in the house had created a gap between her and her father. He seemed distracted, often lost in conversation with Isoke, leaving Sanele to fend for herself. Even when she tried to talk to him, he would brush her off with a distracted answer or a quick excuse, making her feel as though she wasn't needed or wanted anymore. Sanele tried to hold on to the connection they once shared, but it was becoming harder with each passing day. The once warm home now felt like a place where Sanele didn't belong. She was constantly stuck doing the heavy work, while Kendi lived a life of luxury, surrounded by attention and comfort. It wasn't just the chores that drained Sanele, but the isolation she felt in her own home. Her father's absence in her life made her dreams seem even more distant, as if no one cared about them anymore. The peaceful life she once knew was slipping away, and she couldn't understand why everything was changing so quickly. All the love and support she had once felt from her father seemed to be going to Isoke and Kendi, leaving Sanele alone and unsure of where she fit into this new family dynamic. As time went on, Sanele found herself in a battle she couldn't win. Isoke quickly took full control of the household, and everything revolved around her. She decided how things should be done, and didn't care how hard it was for Sanele. Isoke made sure to remind Sanele of her place in the house, always giving her the most difficult chores to do. From dawn until dusk, Sanele worked tirelessly, sweeping, washing, cooking, and cleaning. No matter how much she did, it was never enough. Isoke always found something to criticize, and Sanele began to feel invisible. Every task was an endless cycle, with no room for rest and no one to turn to for support. Meanwhile, Kendi lived a life of comfort. She spent her days lounging in her room, using her father's attention to get whatever she wanted. She demanded new clothes, new jewelry, and even more time with their father, while Sanele worked without complaint. Kendi's life was easy, and she seemed to enjoy watching Sanele struggle. She never lifted a finger to help with anything around the house, and if Sanele ever spoke up about the unfairness, Kendi would laugh and remind her that it didn't matter. Sanele had no voice in the house anymore. But the most painful part of all was how Isoke and Kendi made sure that Sanele couldn't chase her dreams. Fashion was everything to her. It was her escape, her way of making sense of the world. But Isoke, with her controlling ways, forbade her from drawing or designing. "You need to focus on what's important," Isoke would say coldly. "Your dreams are a waste of time." Sanele's sketchbooks, once filled with colorful dresses and beautiful designs, sat untouched in the corner of her room. Every time she tried to create something, she was told to stop and focus on the housework. Her passion for fashion began to feel like a distant memory, something she could never reach. As the days passed, Sanele's heart grew heavy. She wasn't just doing chores, she was slowly losing herself. The world she had once imagined, filled with colors and dreams, now seemed impossible. All she wanted was to be seen, to be heard, to have the chance to live her dream. But instead, she felt stuck in a life that wasn't hers. The joy she once found in sketching and designing was replaced with a quiet sorrow. She was forced to put her dreams aside while Isoke and Kendi lived without a care in the world. Deep down, Sanele knew that something had to change, but for now, she could only dream of a life where her voice mattered. Despite the harshness of her new life, Sanele refused to let go of her dreams. Each day, while Isoke and Kendi went about their lives, Sanele found quiet moments to herself. At night, when the house was still and everyone was asleep, she would sneak into her small room, carefully taking out the old notebook hidden beneath her bed. It was filled with sketches, dresses, patterns, and designs she had dreamed of bringing to life one day. Each line she drew was a reminder of who she was and what she wanted to become. She had no fabric to work with, no sewing machine to create the dresses she envisioned, but in her heart, she could still see them clearly, flowing, colorful, beautiful dresses that would make people feel special. Sanele's sketches became her escape, her solace in a world that had grown cold and cruel. As she drew, she could almost hear the sound of fabric swishing and the laughter of people admiring her creations. It was a world where she was free, a world where she was no longer just a servant in her own home, but an artist with a future. Even though Isoke had forbidden her to dream, Sanele kept going. She would spend hours in the dark, carefully adding details to her designs, imagining how she could turn them into reality one day. She kept these sketches hidden from everyone, knowing that if they were discovered, Isoke would only tear them up, mocking her for having such unrealistic dreams. But Sanele didn't care. With each stroke of her pencil, she felt a little more alive, a little closer to the future she wanted. Her sketches were the only things that kept her going. They were her quiet rebellion, the only part of herself that no one could take away. In those stolen moments, Sanele found hope again. She knew that, no matter how hard things got, she could hold on to her dreams. One day, they would come true. She just had to believe, even when everything around her seemed determined to crush that belief. One day, something unexpected happened that brought a glimmer of hope into Sanele's life. A famous fashion house, known across the region for its stunning designs, announced a competition. They were looking for talented new designers to showcase their work in a grand fashion show. The winner would not only gain fame, but also have the chance to launch their own fashion line. It was a dream come true for anyone who loved fashion, and Sanele's heart raced with excitement. This was her chance. She could finally prove her talent and show the world what she was capable of. For days, Sanele couldn't stop thinking about the competition. She knew she had the designs, the creativity, and the passion, but there was one huge problem. Isoke. When Sanele first heard about the competition, she couldn't wait to tell her father. Maybe, just maybe, he would understand how important this was to her. But when Sanele shared her excitement with Isoke, the response was nothing like she had hoped. Isoke immediately shut her down. "You are not wasting your time on something so foolish," she snapped. "You belong here, helping with the house, not chasing after dreams that won't come true." Sanele felt her heart drop. She knew Isoke would say something like that. For Isoke, her dreams didn't matter. All that mattered was keeping her in line and under her control. Isoke made it clear that Sanele was not allowed to participate in the competition, not even to try. Sanele's hands trembled as she tried to argue, but Isoke's cold stare made her quiet. Her father, once her biggest supporter, said nothing. He was too busy with Isoke to notice the pain in Sanele's eyes. Sanele had never felt so helpless. The competition was everything she had dreamed of, but Isoke's refusal crushed her hope. She spent days torn between the longing to enter the competition and the fear of facing Isoke's wrath. But deep down, she knew she couldn't let this opportunity slip away. If she didn't act now, she might never have another chance. And so, despite the obstacles, Sanele made a decision that would change her life forever. She couldn't give up on her dream, not now, not ever. Sanele knew that she couldn't let her dream slip away. Even if Isoke had forbidden her from entering the competition, she had to find a way to participate, even if it meant doing it in secret. She couldn't do it alone, though. That's when she thought of her childhood friend, Zuberi. Zuberi had always been there for her, supporting her through thick and thin. He was clever and trusted her completely, so Sanele turned to him for help. One evening, after everyone had gone to bed, Sanele quietly met Zuberi outside their home. She handed him her best design sketch, a beautiful dress that she had poured her heart into. Zuberi knew how important this was for her, and without hesitation, he agreed to help. They made a plan. Zuberi would submit her design to the competition on her behalf, but he would do so anonymously. No one would know it was Sanele's work, not even the judges. Sanele felt a rush of excitement, mixed with a deep sense of fear. If anyone found out, Isoke would make sure she paid for it. The next day, Zuberi took the design and submitted it to the competition. Sanele's heart raced as the deadline passed. Unsure of what would happen, she tried not to think about it, but every moment felt like an eternity. Days went by, and Sanele couldn't help but wonder if anyone would even notice her design. But to her amazement, the judges selected her dress as one of the finalists. Her anonymous submission had made it through the first round. Then, the day of the competition arrived. The fashion house revealed the names of the top designers who would be showcasing their work in the grand fashion show. Sanele was in shock when she heard the news. Her design had won the competition, and she hadn't even had to reveal her identity. She had done it. Against all odds, she had made her dream come true. The thought of her stepmother, who had tried to crush her spirit, and her father, who had stayed silent, filled her with mixed emotions. But in this moment, all that mattered was that her talent had been recognized and her future had just begun. Sanele couldn't wait to see her design come to life on the runway. And as she thought about the upcoming showcase, she knew one thing for sure. Nothing, not even Isoke's harsh rules, could stop her from following her dreams. Just when Sanele thought things couldn't get any better, something even more incredible happened. After winning the competition, she received an invitation that left her breathless. A letter, embossed with gold, arrived one morning, and it was addressed to her. The letter was from none other than Prince Kwame, a young and admired leader known for his love of the arts and his support for young talent. The prince had seen the winning designs from the competition and was so impressed by Sanele's work that he invited her to a grand fashion showcase he was hosting. The showcase was not just any event. It was an exclusive gathering, attended by powerful leaders, famous designers, and wealthy patrons from all over the region. Prince Kwame was known for his vision of bringing change to his kingdom, and he admired those who used their talents to make a difference. Sanele's heart raced with excitement. This was the opportunity of a lifetime, a chance to show the world who she really was and what she could create. The letter promised her a chance to showcase her designs at the event, and it was an honor that no one in her village had ever received before. Sanele could hardly believe it. Just months ago, she had been struggling to keep her dream alive in the shadow of Isoke's cruelty, and now she was being invited to a royal event. She couldn't wait to tell Zuberi, who had helped her submit her designs secretly. Together, they had come so far. This invitation was not just a recognition of her talent, it was a symbol of how far she had come despite the obstacles. But as the excitement of the invitation sank in, Sanele couldn't ignore the fear that crept into her heart. Isoke would never approve of her attending such an event, and she was sure her stepmother would try to stop her. But no matter what, Sanele knew she couldn't let this chance slip away. Prince Kwame had seen something in her work, and she was determined to show the world what she was capable of, even if it meant facing her fears. This showcase would be the beginning of something much bigger, and Sanele was ready to step into the spotlight. When Isoke and Kendi found out about Sanele's secret victory, they were furious. They couldn't believe that Sanele had entered the competition without their permission, and even worse, that she had won. Isoke's anger was like a storm, dark and threatening. She had always controlled everything in their house, and now Sanele had taken a step out of line. Isoke couldn't stand the thought of Sanele gaining recognition or living out her dreams, so she came up with a cruel plan. One evening, as Sanele was getting ready for the showcase, Isoke and Kendi trapped her in the small shed at the back of the house. The shed was dark, cold, and filled with old tools and forgotten things. Sanele tried to protest, but Isoke was too strong, locking the door and leaving her alone in the darkness. "You won't ruin this for us," Isoke sneered. "Kendi will go to the showcase instead, and everyone will think she's the one who created those designs." Kendi, who had always been spoiled and selfish, didn't care about how Sanele felt. She was thrilled at the idea of taking credit for someone else's work. She had no talent of her own, but the thought of standing in the spotlight, receiving the admiration that was meant for Sanele, made her smile with satisfaction. She was ready to pretend the designs were hers, and Isoke promised her that no one would find out the truth. Sanele was locked in the shed for hours, her heart racing as she realized what was happening. She felt trapped, helpless, and betrayed by the people who were supposed to care for her. Her dreams seemed to be slipping away from her, and all she could think about was how she had fought so hard to get to this point. She couldn't let them steal everything she had worked for. But how would she escape? How could she stop Isoke and Kendi from destroying her chance to show her talent to the world? The hours in the shed felt like an eternity, but Sanele wasn't ready to give up. Deep inside, she knew that she couldn't let Isoke and Kendi win. Her dreams were worth fighting for, and she had come too far to let them take it all away. As she thought about her sketchbook and the design she had created, a plan began to form in her mind. She wouldn't let them control her anymore. She had to break free. Sanele's heart pounded in her chest as she sat in the dark shed, locked away by Isoke and Kendi. She could hear the faint sounds of the house from where she sat, but she felt so far from everything she had worked for. Despair started to settle in, but then a small glimmer of hope appeared. She remembered Zuberi, her childhood friend who had always been there for her. If anyone could help her escape, it was him. As the hours passed, she silently waited, knowing that Zuberi would be the only one who could get her out. Then, just as she thought she might lose hope, she heard footsteps outside the shed. It was Zuberi. He had come for her. He had noticed that something was wrong when he didn't hear from her, so he snuck around to the back of the house, determined to help. Zuberi quickly unlocked the shed and pulled open the door. He looked at Sanele with wide eyes, concern written all over his face. "Are you okay? We need to get out of here now," he whispered urgently. Sanele nodded, her voice choking with emotion. She could hardly believe that Zuberi was here to help her escape. Without wasting a moment, Zuberi helped Sanele climb out of the shed and into the safety of the night. She was free, but only for a moment. They knew that Isoke and Kendi would be looking for her, so they had to move quickly. Zuberi, being quick-witted and always ready to help, had already thought of a plan. He led her to a small back entrance of the house where no one would see her. Sanele knew there wasn't much time left. The showcase was soon, and she couldn't afford to be late. As they made their way to the door, Zuberi handed her a beautifully wrapped package, her masterpiece dress, the one she had designed all on her own. "This is your moment," he said with a smile. "Go show them who you are." With Zuberi's help, Sanele quickly got dressed in the dress she had created. It was a stunning, one-of-a-kind creation, a mix of bold patterns and delicate fabrics that showcased her unique vision. The dress made her feel like a new person, full of confidence and strength. It was the symbol of everything she had dreamed of and worked for. Sanele arrived at the grand showcase just in time. As she walked into the room, all eyes turned to her. The crowd gasped in admiration at her design. Sanele felt a surge of pride. She had made it. She was here, standing in the place she had dreamed of for so long. And it was her talent, her hard work, that had brought her this far. For the first time in a long time, Sanele felt truly free. She had broken free from the chains that Isoke and Kendi had placed on her, and now she was ready to show the world who she really was. Nothing could stop her now. As Sanele walked into the grand showcase, the hall shimmered with elegant lights and glittering decorations. Famous designers, wealthy guests, and fashion lovers from across the region had gathered to see the finest creations. At the center of it all stood Prince Kwame, a commanding yet kind figure, known for his wisdom and love for the arts. He watched the event with admiration, ready to honor the talents of new designers. Kendi, dressed in stolen glory, had already taken the stage. She stood confidently, smiling as the audience admired the designs displayed around her. These were Sanele's creations, the result of her sleepless nights and endless dreams. But Kendi didn't care. She basked in the attention, pretending that the designs were hers. Sanele's fists clenched as she saw the scene unfold. Anger and hurt surged within her, but she reminded herself why she was here, to take back what was rightfully hers. She straightened her shoulders, the masterpiece dress she wore shimmering under the lights. This was her moment. She had fought too hard to let fear hold her back now. As Kendi finished her speech, the crowd applauded politely. Prince Kwame was about to address the audience when Sanele took a bold step forward. "Wait!" she called out, her voice clear and unwavering. The room fell silent. All eyes turned toward the young woman standing confidently in the center of the hall. "This is not her work," Sanele declared, pointing directly at Kendi. "Those designs are mine. I created them." Gasps filled the room as whispers spread like wildfire. Kendi's face turned pale, and Isoke, standing nearby, glared furiously at Sanele. "You're lying!" Kendi spat, trying to regain control. But Sanele was ready. She reached into her bag and pulled out her sketchbook, filled with the original drawings of each design displayed. "These are the sketches," she said firmly, flipping through the pages. The audience leaned forward, examining the undeniable proof. Even the judges, who had seen the submissions, recognized the unique details. Prince Kwame stepped forward, his eyes filled with respect. "You are brave to stand here and speak the truth," he said. "It takes courage to claim what is yours, especially when others try to take it from you." He gestured toward the designs. "And your work speaks for itself. You have a rare and extraordinary talent." The audience erupted into applause, their support washing over Sanele like a wave. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she stood tall, her heart filled with pride. This was her victory, not just for her designs, but for standing up for herself. Kendi and Isoke stood frozen, exposed as frauds before the entire crowd. They had tried to steal Sanele's dreams, but now they faced disgrace. Sanele, however, chose not to dwell on their downfall. She had reclaimed her rightful place, and that was all that mattered. As the applause continued, Prince Kwame smiled warmly. "You deserve to be celebrated, Sanele," he said. "Your talent and courage will inspire many." Sanele knew in that moment that her life had changed forever. She had fought for her dreams and won, not just a competition, but her freedom and dignity. The room was filled with murmurs and whispers as the truth sank in. Sanele had just revealed that the beautiful designs everyone admired were hers, not Kendi's. The proof was undeniable, right there in her sketchbook, matching every detail of the dresses on display. The crowd stared in shock, their eyes shifting between Sanele and the stunned pair of frauds, Isoke and Kendi. Kendi's face was pale, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. She had no words to defend herself. She had basked in stolen glory just moments ago, but now the same audience that had clapped for her was whispering in disgust. "A liar," someone muttered from the crowd. "How shameful," another voice added. Kendi's fake smile crumbled into panic, and she looked desperately toward Isoke for help. Isoke, usually so smug and confident, was now red with embarrassment. Her sharp eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape, but there was none. Everyone knew the truth now. Prince Kwame's presence made the humiliation even worse. His gaze was steady and filled with disappointment. "Deception has no place here," he said firmly, his voice echoing through the hall. "Stealing another person's hard work is dishonorable and shameful." The guests began turning their backs on Isoke and Kendi, shaking their heads in disapproval. Wealthy patrons whispered to one another about cutting ties with them. Designers who had once admired Kendi now looked at her with scorn. Some even laughed mockingly as she stumbled off the stage, humiliated beyond words. One older woman, a respected fashion mentor, spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Talent shines through truth, not lies," she said. "And that young woman, Sanele, has more grace and courage than the two of you combined." Kendi tried to hold her head high, but the weight of public disgrace was too much. Isoke grabbed her by the arm, hissing angrily, "Let's go!" But even as they hurried toward the exit, the whispers and cold stares followed them. Their carefully crafted image of importance and success had shattered completely. Back in the hall, Sanele stood proudly, her heart steady despite everything that had happened. She had won, not just by reclaiming her designs, but by standing up for herself and showing the world her worth. The humiliation of Isoke and Kendi was complete, but Sanele chose not to linger on their downfall. Instead, she focused on the applause that still echoed through the hall. As Isoke and Kendi disappeared into disgrace, Sanele knew they would no longer hold power over her life. The community had seen their true colors, and there was no place left for their lies. Sanele, however, had a future filled with possibility, and nothing could stop her now. The grand hall was filled with applause as Sanele stood proudly, her heart filled with joy and relief. She had not only reclaimed her designs, but had proven to the world that she was worthy of success. The weight of years spent under Isoke and Kendi's cruelty had finally lifted, and now Sanele was free to dream again. As the applause faded, Prince Kwame stepped forward, his warm smile radiating through the room. His presence commanded respect, but there was a gentleness in his eyes as he looked at Sanele. "You are remarkable, Sanele," he said, in a voice filled with admiration. "Your courage and talent have inspired everyone here tonight. It's not just your designs that are beautiful, it's your spirit as well." Sanele's cheeks flushed with emotion. She had never imagined standing before royalty like this, let alone receiving such praise. The prince paused for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts, and then continued, "I believe the world needs to see more of your work. I would be honored to offer you a partnership to launch your very own fashion brand." The room erupted in cheers. Sanele's heart raced. Her very own brand. It was more than she had ever dared to dream. Tears welled up in her eyes, but they were tears of joy. "Thank you, Your Highness," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "This means everything to me." But Prince Kwame wasn't finished. The room grew quiet again as he took a step closer to Sanele, his eyes never leaving hers. "There's something else I want to say," he added softly. "Tonight, I saw not just a talented designer, but a woman of incredible strength and heart. I admire you, Sanele, not just for what you create, but for who you are." Sanele's breath caught in her throat as the prince continued. "Will you do me the honor of not only partnering with me in business, but also sharing your life with me? Will you marry me?" A gasp rippled through the crowd, followed by whispers of excitement. Sanele was speechless, her heart pounding wildly. The prince, kind, wise, and admired by all, was asking her to marry him. For a moment, she could hardly believe it. But then she thought of everything she had been through, how far she had come, and how this moment was proof that dreams could come true. She smiled through her happy tears and said, "Yes, Your Highness, I will marry you." The hall exploded with cheers and applause. Prince Kwame took Sanele's hand, his face glowing with happiness. Together, they stood as a symbol of triumph, love, and new beginnings. Sanele had not only won back her dreams, but had also found a future filled with love and endless possibilities. The sun shone brightly over the royal palace as the joyful sounds of celebration filled the air. Flowers of every color decorated the grand courtyard, and guests, dressed in elegant attire, gathered to witness the most beautiful wedding the town had ever seen. Today was Sanele's day, the day she would marry Prince Kwame and begin a new chapter filled with love and success. Sanele stood gracefully at the entrance of the palace garden, her heart full of happiness. She wore a stunning wedding gown she had designed herself, a masterpiece of flowing fabric and intricate embroidery that shimmered in the sunlight. It was more than just a dress. It was a symbol of her journey, her dreams, and her strength. With every step she took, Sanele radiated confidence and joy. The crowd rose to their feet as Sanele walked down the aisle. Whispers of admiration swept through the guests. "She's so beautiful," one woman said. "What a talented and strong young woman," another added. Prince Kwame waited at the end of the aisle, his eyes filled with love and pride as he watched Sanele approach. Among the guests, hidden in the back, stood Isoke and Kendi. They had not been invited, but they couldn't resist sneaking in to see what they had lost. Dressed in simple, plain clothes, they looked out of place among the royal guests. Isoke's face was hard with bitterness, while Kendi's eyes burned with envy. They had tried to ruin Sanele, to take away her dreams and success, but now they were the ones left with nothing. As they watched Sanele stand proudly beside the prince, regret filled their hearts. Isoke realized that her schemes had only led to disgrace. Kendi, who had once thought herself better than Sanele, now saw the truth. Sanele had everything they had dreamed of, but never earned. The ceremony was beautiful and filled with love. Prince Kwame spoke his vows with sincerity, promising to stand by Sanele's side forever. Sanele, her voice steady and filled with emotion, vowed to cherish and love him in return. As they exchanged rings, the crowd erupted into cheers, showering them with blessings. After the ceremony, Sanele and Prince Kwame led their guests to a grand celebration, filled with music, dancing, and laughter. The palace sparkled with joy, a reflection of the happiness in Sanele's heart. Isoke and Kendi, unable to bear the sight of Sanele's triumph, quietly slipped away, their faces heavy with regret. But Sanele did not dwell on their departure. She had forgiven them in her heart long ago, choosing to move forward rather than be burdened by bitterness. Today was about joy, love, and victory. As the music played and guests celebrated, Sanele smiled brightly. She had claimed everything Isoke and Kendi had tried to steal from her: her dreams, her happiness, and her rightful place in the world. And now, surrounded by love and success, Sanele knew that she had truly won. As the stars sparkled in the night sky, the grand celebration at the palace slowly came to a joyful close. Sanele stood on the balcony, gazing at the peaceful scene below. Music still played softly, and laughter drifted through the air. Her heart was full of happiness. She had fought hard for this moment, and now she was living her dream. Sanele's journey had not been easy. Isoke and Kendi had tried to crush her spirit, steal her talent, and take away her future. They had made her life difficult at every turn. Yet here she was, stronger than ever. She had overcome their cruelty, reclaimed her dreams, and now stood as a successful designer, loved and admired by many. Earlier that evening, Sanele had seen Isoke and Kendi slip away from the wedding celebration, their faces heavy with shame and regret. The world now knew the truth about their lies and deception. They had lost their reputation and influence. Despite everything they had done to her, Sanele felt no hatred toward them. "I forgive them," she whispered softly to herself. Carrying bitterness in her heart would only hold her back. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant choosing peace over pain. And Sanele chose to move forward, leaving behind the weight of the past. Her journey had become a source of inspiration for many. Young women who had once doubted their own strength now looked up to her as a symbol of courage and resilience. Sanele's story showed that even when life is unfair, dreams can still come true with determination and bravery. As the cool breeze brushed against her face, Prince Kwame joined her on the balcony. His eyes, warm and filled with admiration, met hers. "Thinking about your victory?" he asked with a gentle smile. Sanele smiled back. "Not just victory," she said, "but how far I've come." "You've earned every bit of this happiness," Kwame said proudly, "and there's so much more waiting for you." Sanele's heart swelled with gratitude. She knew this was only the beginning of a beautiful new chapter. She had her fashion brand, a loving partner, and a bright future filled with endless possibilities. As she stood hand in hand with the prince, Sanele knew that life had finally given her the sweet victory she deserved, and through forgiveness, courage, and determination, she had created a future far greater than she had ever dreamed.